Hi, my name is James Shepard, and this is video 3 in our 5-video series on selling e-commerce merchants. And in this video, I want to talk to you about choosing a payment gateway. I'm actually going to make some really specific recommendations to you of some payment gateways that I think are really good. The first step that you're going to want to take is, of course, you're going to want to reach out to your payment processor and talk to your payment processor about the different gateways that they make available that they've already integrated with. And there's a couple things that you want to keep in mind when you're choosing a gateway through your processor. The first one actually is cost. You do need to understand what the costs are. So to make sure you understand this, when you're talking about a processor, you always have a Schedule A. So your Schedule A lists all your costs and itemizes, 3 cents a transaction plus 2 basis points plus a $5 monthly fee, whatever the costs are. But when you get a gateway to help an e-commerce merchant, there are going to be costs on top of that are going to go in addition. And so you need to know what those costs are, transaction costs, whatever. Now, it's not as big of a deal because, again, people with e-commerce, they're expecting to pay more money. But it's not an issue as much of like you're not going to be able to make the sale if the costs are a little higher. The issue is that you're not going to make as much money if the costs are higher because of your residuals. So just be aware of that. And again, the costs are going to be higher, but just understand what those costs are and kind of look at that. Now, most processors that are in the industry, most of them have available Authorize.net. And usually one other gateway, sometimes 2 other gateways. So they're going to have several gateways from which you can choose. And this decision that you need to make about the gateway, there's really only 2 factors to consider. Number 1, we already talked about, which is the cost. Number 2 is the convenience for the developer the web developer to be able to integrate that gateway into a website in a way that keeps that merchant out of scope. So let me give you an example. My personal favorite gateway right now is NMI. So it's like N as in Nancy, M as in Mary, I.com. Just go to nmi.com. This is my favorite gateway at the moment. We actually just built a software solution where we integrated into this, and it was pretty simple. We really liked it a lot. Now, one of the things that NMI has that's pretty cool, NMI actually has different ways where you can send information over to them without being in scope, okay? And so I'm not going to get into a bunch of technical details in this video. This video is not for developers. This video is for salespeople. And so, there is a way that they can send keep the merchant out of scope, send the payment information over, and it's fairly easy to integrate it into the system. And so what you need to do when you're choosing a gateway is you need to understand, number 1, the convenience level to make sure that they can keep them out of scope. So again, that's the terminology you use. Ask your processor, call the gateway and say, how can my merchants process payments with your gateway and stay out of scope, okay? Now, Authorize.net. Authorize.net is one of the most widely used gateways. Authorize.net does have a solution now. I actually programmed one myself about 6 months ago with Authorize.net. They do have a solution now that will keep you out of scope, and it's pretty cool, actually. I like what it does. I won't get into all the technical details, but it basically builds a form on your page that doesn't really exist, but it kind of builds it for you, and then it accepts the payment information, then the form kind of goes away, and it grabs everything and pulls it over. So it's a pretty unique solution to the problem of keeping it out of scope, and so they have a solution as well that will keep you out of scope. Now, however, having said that, in my personal opinion, I felt like Authorize.net, their solution is still a little bit harder to use for a developer than the NMI.com gateway. And there are also many other gateways. Payscape is another one. There's just a lot of different gateways out there. And so you can look at the different gateways. The ones you can't look at is Stripe, PayPal, and Square, because even though they're the 3 biggest, and honestly, they are the easiest to use right now, guess what? They don't have a reseller program. I think Stripe actually started one now, but it's terrible. You don't get compensation. So you really can't go that route. You need to go to your processor, find the gateway that they have, ask them about the costs and look into that, and then look at the convenience factor of a developer being able to put this onto a website. And I'll talk a little bit more about how to assess that coming up here in the next video.